It's Ultra Retrospective, the web series dedicated to talking about Ultraman. Today's subject is another anniversary season, the franchise's 50th. So grab some ramune, because it's Orbin time.
Ultraman Orb!
It's another alternate timeline. Monsters are showing up, and the only one putting in any effort to stop them is protagonist Guy Kurenai, a musically inclined cowboy who inherited the powers of Ultraman Orb well over a century ago. With the use of cards containing the power of other Ultramen, he can fuse with them to take on more powerful forms. He's always running into the show's attack team, who, for once, isn't an attack team. Yeah, they took a different approach with this one. The SSP, Something Search People, is a trio of nerds operating out of an apartment. They chase cryptids and have to pay rent.
Something Search People? 出動! Oh! じゃあ、私バイト行ってきます。
It's a funny take on an old formula. The SSP gets their leads by doing interviews, and they have to endure the opinions of rude strangers online. Me too, brother. They're sometimes accompanied by Captain Naomi's uncle Shibusawa, who's part of the actual attack team that isn't seen very often. This guy should be in a death metal band, by the way. Listen to that voice. Wow! Guy's one of the cooler new-gen protagonists. He's not an early 20-something or a bright-eyed teenager. He's a little older, more world-weary. Guy still has that basic goal of wanting to protect everyone, cause, you know, he's the good guy, yet it's born out of regret from an incident in his past, so it comes off as a little more driven. He's also still got charisma and goofy one-liners. Actor Hideo Ishiguro was one of the oldest to play an Ultraman protagonist at the time. He would have been 27 at the time they shot this show, only recently being trumped in starting age by Gento from Ultraman Blazar at age 30. It's refreshing in a sea of younger faces that make up this franchise's main characters. The cowboy thing is a lot of fun too. All but Guy pale in comparison to Orb's real star though, because holy shit! Jugless Juggler is an absolute treat of a character. Yeah, that is his name, Jugless Juggler. He shares a checkered past with our protagonist. If we're being real, he's not juggling anything except Guy's orbs. Takaya Aoyagi plays the part so well. It's cool that the show is able to have its cake and eat it too, cause Juggler juggles being genuinely entertaining and being threatening when he needs to be. It's the usual, "Grah, people are the scum of the earth, and I'm doing this planet a service by giving in to the darkness because it's epic and you're not," spiel, when he has to actually explain himself. But everything else about the character makes him entertaining. He's a villain I love to hate. There's a lot of Fujoshi teasing in this season. This is a really fun ensemble. The comedy is sometimes played a little too broadly for my liking. Sometimes I dig it, but the way the characters play off each other with overlapping dialogue and wacky interactions is still very charming. One thing this show does better than most is a great job at establishing a sense of place before getting into the action. On a general story structure level, it feels bigger when you have that juxtaposition of the mundane and the fantastic. Especially since there isn't a commander these characters have to answer to. The scaled down setting and shifted focus from the usual attack team antics helps Orb feel more casual, more laid back. The comedy might not always be for me, but it's a welcoming vibe, a much needed change of pace from the usual strict militarism. Even if it's only like this because of budget constraints, it works. This lower-budget, homegrown approach to attack teams was a template that later seasons adapted. In shows like Taiga and Jeed, attack teams would be reimagined as something reminiscent of the working class, wearing outfits not too dissimilar to salarymen. Still a team, absolutely, but much less showy and slightly more realistic. It would take until Zet's storage for one to resemble something like X's again. But even then, storage team members resembled construction or factory workers more than the colorful teams of old. This was a new era, and Orb set the new standard. It's reminiscent of attack teams of the past without actually being one. I appreciate the down-to-earth vibes that it brings to the show. With the exception of mini-arcs like the one with Alien Mephiles, Orb is focused on this central cast of characters throughout, building up a mysterious yet romantic connection between Captain Naomi and Guy, and culminating in a final confrontation with Juggler and the monsters he summons. Stuff like this happens in the meantime. It's a new generation show, so you know you're going to be seeing a lot of familiar faces. It is worth mentioning that the show does spice things up a little, despite having the usual unaltered subjects. We've got another classification of kaiju here. The monsters being sent in are called Maoju. They look a little different. Maoju are a good way of bringing back the regulars with a different look, and I wish it was consistent. Bemular is being brought back with horns, but Black King gets nothing. Rip off. Gubula is also here, which means I unfortunately have to subtract a couple points from this show's final score. The new monsters we get are pretty good, both forms of Orochi being highlights. I like how Galactron is a music robot. Its sound effects make funky space noises. I don't know how destroying a random forest is gonna help cull the human population. Yeah, that's kind of its thing. It wants to exterminate everyone because we're bad or whatever. And that apparently includes every other living thing on the planet? If anything, this only proves that it's just as destructive as us, but hypocritical space aliens work in mysterious ways, I guess. It even rips off the piano from John Lennon's Imagine. Now that's peak pretentiousness.
Imagine all the eagles pecking out your eyes.
Having lost access to his base form, Guy now requires the cards of two other Ultramen to transform. Now if you've seen my past couple New Gen videos, you know how I feel about these toyetic gimmicks, and I'm sure you love hearing me talk about them. But I'm happy to report that they don't bother me as much here. Sure, the transformations still take forever. In fact, they're the longest they've ever been, especially when Orb gets that darn plastic wheel sword.
Good riddance.
While I still maintain that a quick rise sequence works better for Ultraman and is way more memorable, there is something to appreciate about the flair these elements bring. Not for how they fuck with the pacing, but more for how they impact the overall show. Each form has a different fighting style, so there's a little more fight scene variety. They showcase different personalities too. The Manantika form is more stoic, the fusion with Zero is a little cockier, and the fusion with Belial is more ruthless. And that part directly ties into a small character arc Guy goes through. It's just a good touch to tie that into the story and themes of light and dark. It also lends itself to an endearing character trait. I love the detail of Guy politely asking the cards every time he wants to use them. He may try to be a cool, distant cowboy, but I don't know, the politeness is endearing.
こいつはウルトラマンジャックさんの力でしたか。お疲れさんです。よろしくお願いします。
For that, I'll let the card slide, but the only thing this show convinced me to buy is Ramune. The primary showrunner here is, once again, Kiyotaka Taguchi. As a special effects supervisor, he brings to this show plenty of monster and human interaction, well-shot action scenes, and long, showy takes. It's a very competently shot season, and there's a uniformity in the quality of the effects here that keeps it looking consistently good throughout. Some obvious exceptions, of course, but it wouldn't be Ultraman without a goofy-looking shot or two. That's how you know we're back. Just, maybe lay off the digital screen shake. There's a lot of little fun touches in the writing, some attention to detail. I'd be thinking about something and then the show would address it. Like in the first episode, Guy enters a photo booth to transform, and the timer on the booth is cut back to and used to show how much time Orb has left. It establishes the Ultraman time limit trope without having a narrator come in and be like,
"Because of Earth's polluted atmosphere, Ultraman can only retain his gigantic form for 3 minutes.
Maybe Guy would have had more time if 30 of those seconds weren't spent transforming. He has to come back later and dispose of the evidence too. The show's full of cute little moments like that. One thing this season started doing that was brought over to the next ones are these stylized title cards. These look like something straight out of the Showa era. I like them. Shout out to the opening Orb no Iori too. It's sung by the late legendary recording artist Ichiro Mizuki. It's pretty good. While I do consider Orb an overall good show, its narrative doesn't do much for me. It's simultaneously ambitious and underwritten. It's trying to tell this grand story of long-lost loves and regrets, but it doesn't have enough time to show it very convincingly. The cast is good enough to get me through it, and all the other positives I listed earlier are still valid. But it's part of why, on some days, I might prefer Ultraman X. That's a show that has a weaker overall foundation. I don't really like the characters as much. But there are more episodes I can go back to since so many of them are divorced from the context of the story, which it keeps mostly in the background. Orb, meanwhile, has a lot of episodes that can't be seen without context from the last one. It's just a more committal show, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm not always in the mood for that. He's basically saying it's okay if you're not perfect, you can still be a good person. I don't think that message works quite as well as they think it does. Since Guy is almost always shown to be a good guy, him almost killing his friends one time isn't enough. In fact, I think this arc is a bit of a slog. But that's the running theme here, how people aren't just one thing, good or bad. There are different sides to people. Shibusawa isn't always bumbling, he's competent when he needs to be. Juggler isn't a totally bad person, there's part of him who wants to help people. Naomi isn't always a goofball who's overworked and trying to make ends meet. Sometimes she can be a boring husk when the plot calls for it. Yeah, I'm gonna be real, she wasn't the best character. But yeah, there are different sides to people. This is an idea that pops up every now and again. Overall, not a bad message for a kids show, but it's hard to not feel like there's something missing. Some missing ingredient that would truly make this narrative compelling to me. There is a missing ingredient, for the record, but I'll talk about it later. There are some solid, mostly standalone episodes that I want to shout out, though. These aren't the only good ones, but it's easier for me to single them out without spoiling what happens in the main narrative. There's a pretty decent story here about alien Babalu having an identity crisis after realizing he actually likes being a good person. Conflict of faith plots like this are interesting to see with aliens. A subversion of the typical Ultra Imposter episode, too. One of my favorite scenes happens in the episode where Naomi's mom comes to visit. Juggler shows up and starts threatening Guy, but the mom wildly misinterprets their relationship and Juggler ends up joining them for food. Guy thought Juggler just died too, so it's extra weird for him. It's such an odd scene. I like it a lot. Special mention should go to this show's recap episode. Less for how good it is and more for how interesting it is. From here on out, the showrunners would attempt to write actual episodes around the characters remembering past events. It's still obvious filler and no better than what The Simpsons did, but if you're gonna do a recap, this is how you do it. The show's best episode, if you ask me, actually dips into a bit of sentimentality. On the eve of the show's cataclysmic finale, aliens from all over Japan are leaving the Earth, all but one, Commander Black from Ultraman Leo. Probably a different one than the one that got torn apart by the kids. But yeah, he's running a cafe for the last aliens left, deep down still holding on to his dream of invasion. This is one of the more relaxing episodes. Most of it takes place at the cafe, and there's some great moments between Black and his patrons. Even though he did a lot of awful things, if that was originally him, it's hard not to feel bad for him.
Simple is the best. 最近の怪獣はごちゃごちゃしてていいか?
Oh. I think simplicity is best. Oh my god. Did I become Commander Black? Ultraman Orb is pretty good. It's got all the fun choreography I've come to expect and respect. The supporting cast is decent, Juggler is such a piece of shit and I love him. The new monsters are cool, and it's got some good episodes. It also tries a couple new things and reinvents established tropes, which is always commendable. Yeah, this is just a solid season of Ultraman. I have reservations about the overall story, it felt kind of undercooked, but that's the only big complaint I've got. While most of the shows after Mebius haven't been bad, for me, Orb and X represent a level of enjoyment the Ultra series has been trying to get back to ever since the Bandai acquisition. I have a good time with them at least. So yeah, Ultraman Orb, it's pretty good. Solid season. One of the best mans made in the past 10 years. And luckily, again, it won't be the last time a show will impress. So look forward to the G'd review, where okay, fine, I'll talk about Orb Origin Saga. Airing 3 days after the conclusion of the main show, and exclusively on Amazon Prime for some reason, Ultraman Orb The Origin Saga is a 12-episode prequel series. That's what it seems like on the outset, at least. That's what I wish it was. You know what? No, I'm not doing a full review of this. This show is aggressively boring and goes on 5 episodes longer than it should. Likewise, a longer video doesn't always equal a better video, so I'm cutting it short. I've already made the segment for the Patreon, and I was this close to letting it be in the final video, but it went on for 9 minutes, and it changed the tone of the overall video so much, it got so downbeat, that I've decided to cut the segment entirely. Instead, let's talk about its place in the cancelled Orb project, because I assure you, it's way more interesting than describing what happens in this show. See, one of my complaints about Origin Saga is how disconnected it feels from the events of the main show, which makes it feel like a waste of time. An example would be how the relationship between Guy and Juggler in the main show is at a much less amicable place than where it is at the end of Origin Saga. Like there is something we didn't see. There's a reason for that. It was going to be one chapter in a bigger story. See, Ultraman Orb was originally going to be much more ambitious. Orb Origin Saga being Chapter 1, and the main show is Chapter 6. The chapters that happened in between were evidently far enough along in development for some of the scenes to have been storyboarded. Here's a quick recap of everything you didn't see. In Chapter 2, Guy has to collect all the elements for his plastic wheel, and he befriends a kid named Shorty. In Chapter 3, Juggler breaks out of space prison and he emotionally manipulates this alien woman named Baranki into summoning monsters for him. Shorty dies at some point and Guy gets so angry he nearly beats Juggler to death. See, now that actually reflects the relationship in the main show a little more. That's a darker side of Guy that we're seeing that would have benefited the show's point about him having a dark side. Anyways, in Chapter 4, Juggler pretends to be a mummy, and he spreads a religion in the hopes of summoning Gatanazoa. Orb wins, thousands of years pass, and we get to Chapter 5, and this recounts all the backstory shown in flashbacks in the main show. And the rest of what was actually shown is, the rest of the saga, outside of a couple loose ends. I'm not saying that this was a guaranteed masterpiece, but it reflects an ambition that would have been fitting because this is Ultraman's 50th anniversary season. It's a shame that most of this never got filmed. Orb Origin was setting up events for an interim that we never ended up seeing. At most, it sets up that these characters exist, and I guess their primary motivations, and almost everything else about the show is unrelated. And yeah, when you set out to make a show, you do kind of want it to stand on its own. But unfortunately, the show they made was bad. A so-called Episode 0 was planned to go into Juggler and Guy's relationship prior to the start of Orb Origin. At the very least, one of the show's writers, Hirotoshi Kobayashi, expressed interest in doing one on Twitter. I can glean a lot about the two when considering how they act in both shows, but something like an Episode 0 would have been way more interesting to see than all this crap about the Tree of Life and Queen Belvizid. Origin Saga is definitely not the worst the Ultra series has to offer, but just sitting here explaining something that I just did not enjoy for 9 minutes, I don't know, I don't want to subject you to that. It sucks more and more the longer I think about it. I gotta cut this review off here. I don't want to end this video on a sour note, so here's a quick look at the movie. Oh, hi Zero. Anyways, here's a quick look at the movie. It's another one of those Ultraman films that doesn't look that different from the show on a production value level, but it's got some good fun. Daiichi and X are co-stars here, so they have some fun in how these characters from separate shows interact. It's a goofy haunted house movie for a bit. By now the aliens in this franchise are total buffoons, and they're doing Three Stooges bits. And it leads to a big battle, as these things usually do. There's this absolutely delightful character named Sawdeath. He was supposed to appear first in one of the chapters they didn't film, so as is, he just kinda shows up in the movie without the full context. But he makes a good first impression. And because it was his show's 50th anniversary at the time, Ultra 7 randomly and without build-up shows up at the end to help. Whatever, it's fun. Yeah, check this one out. Good character beats, dynamic violence, savage action, astounding beyond belief. It's got what you'd want even if it's not the most substantive hour. A much needed palate cleanser after recording the voiceover for the last bit. Yeah, wow. Going into this video, I had no idea about all the cut content for this show. It did always feel like something was missing from the main 25-episode season, but I think it speaks to how good it was that it's able to mostly stand on its own without all the backstory. As for Guy's life outside the show, he continued wandering the multiverse and showing up in other Ultraman movies. As for more meaningful connections, there are actually a number of clues that led fans to believe that the 2018 season Ultraman Rube would be connected to Orb. There's a circle around the title card which kinda spells out Orb, there was an Orb-themed clip show that aired in the months leading up to it, marketing material featured this dark version of Orb, and the starring men, Rosso and Blue, were said to be from the same planet, O50. Ultimately, while Orb does have some presence in the show, thanks to the main villain's obsession with him, it very much has nothing to do with it, which was very disappointing for some fans. I didn't go into it with that expectation because I didn't even know about the connection, but I'll save my thoughts on Rube until the video. Until then, I'll continue to be passive-aggressive at it. As for Juggler, he went on to have a starring role in a later season, but I'll talk about that later. Obligatory Kaiju Girls mention. Watch the main series and the movie, maybe watch Ultra Fight Orb if you're feeling quirky, and avoid the prequel. Or don't, I can't stop you. That's all I've got. Peace out, have a good one. I'm gonna have a drink. It's pretty good. Wow, hi gamers. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I'm going to keep it short since I want this video to not go too long, so here's a shout out to all the highest tier patrons who get longer videos like this one a little bit earlier than everyone else. Old Metal Possum, Solid Lib, Dinosaurana, Kadorian, Scooter Jit, Mego Muddy, Lobotomy Blues, Cool Bell Zero, Pack Jeff, Johnny Hedgewolf, Eric Guzda, Janos Firewalker, Easterman, Macho Mantis, Manila Fan, Sampai, Big Dumb Media, Navik15, Jacob Hinch, Dude Bro, Alistair Gilmore, Seamus Kelly, Anonymous Euronymous 1349, Fujoshi Urinal, Grazio, Mulan Nguyen, Hey I'm Mooney, Krazak53, Queer Kaiju, Chronicler Waba, Alcoholic Alligators, Ryan Santa Cruz, Avok Robot, The Antagonist, Godzilla Rich, It's Godz, an actual Dimetrodon, CMG, Red Comet Harry, and Marpzilla. Thank you all very much. The next Ultra Retrospective is probably going to be Ultra Q Dark Fantasy. I'm saving that for October. Have a good one.